Yeah,
Well, not
so
Facebook, yeah.
they are live in the brown belt group. So I will be asking questions, and I'll be periodically checking the brown belt group comments as well. But
Nice.
we have some questions that we have written down that we can kind of jump into quickly for everyone. So
Yep.
the first kind of portion that everyone is kind of curious about is certification. So what certifications, if any, do we need to sell from Canada in the U.S. or from Canada in Canada?
Okay, well, from Canada, in Canada, it's pretty easy. I'd recommend you start as a sole proprietor, so you don't actually need a corporation to start off. It's just extra fees for no reason. So you don't need a corporation. Um, you might need an importer number. If you're importing stuff from China or Asia, you're going to need an import number, and you can get that by calling the CRA. Literally takes 5 minutes.
Okay.
So you need an importer number, and then once you start doing over 30 grand a year in sales in Canada, you'll need a GST number. And then depending on your province, it might be GST or HST or PST. In my case in Alberta, it's a GST number. Now for Canadian selling on .com, so in the US, it's basically the same thing. So you don't need to open a corporation to start off. You can sell as a sole proprietor, and you don't need a GST number because it's in the US. And yeah, you don't really need anything to start selling in the US. I mean, unless you want to get an EIN right away, which I wouldn't recommend, but obviously you might want to talk to your accountant about that. But I literally just got an EIN a few months ago, so you don't need anything to start selling in the US.
Okay, cool. Nice. Okay, so then you kind of already answered incorporate in Canada or LLC. You answered sole proprietor, correct?
Well, yeah, to start off, right?
To
I mean,
start.
if you do, you can always incorporate from the beginning, but it's just extra fees for no reason. I'd say once you start doing like 10 grand a month or whatever, then you might want to start incorporating. And then incorporating, I do get this question quite a bit, but I'd say incorporate in Canada. You don't need a US LLC. It's
Okay.
just going to be more of a hassle for you to deal with, an accountant, a specialized accountant in Canada for a US or a US accountant. So it's just going to be more fees. And apparently, if you open a US LLC, you're going to get double tax because you'll get taxed in the US and taxed in Canada. So Canadian corporation is fine.
Okay, cool. And then do you have a like a website, or how do you normally do that in Canada? Is that an easy process, or are there any tricks that you found?
Like to do what, sorry?
Like for example, there's certain states in the USA that have better, LLC legislation,
Oh,
right? Like,
yeah, no, in Canada it's a little bit different. Like you can open a federal corporation, so it's like a numbered company, Canada Inc., or a provincial one. Um, most sellers I know in Canada do the provincial one, which is what I have. So mine is like a numbered Alberta limited company
right.
with a trade name.
Okay.
But really, any of the two is fine. Like federal or provincial, it's just usually most guys go with provincial.
And so
I don't
are
see
they
why you go with federal.
with federal? Okay, so you recommend provincial. Okay, cool. So that kind of answers our next question. So then where to get a bank account? People are kind of wondering like about cross border, physical, like whether you get one in the US or Canada and how kind of the currency exchange works.
Yeah, that's a really good question because at the beginning I didn't know, right? Because the way Amazon works is they'll pay you in the currency of the country where your bank is located. So if your bank is located in Canada and the routing number is Canadian, they'll pay you in Canadian dollars. Okay, even if it's a US dollar account, they'll pay you in Canadian, and then your bank would transfer it back to USD, and you'd lose like twice basically. So what you want to do is you want to set up, if you want to get paid in US dollars from Amazon, you're going to have to set up a cross-border account. Okay. Now, if you start as a sole proprietor, you can do a personal cross-border account, and for these ones, you can open one with RBC, BMO, or TD. These are the only three that offer it, and it's fairly cheap. It's like less than $5 a month or whatever. So how that works is you get a US dollar account based in the US, and then you have a US dollar account based in Canada, and a Canadian dollar account based in Canada, and then you get paid by Amazon in US dollars in your USD account in USA, and then you just transfer it online from US to Canada, and you keep it in US dollar in your account.
Okay. So then
now that's for sole proprietor. If you have a corporation, you're going to have to do a business cross-border account, and then the only bank that offers it in Canada is RBC. So that's the only one that does business cross-border accounts.
Okay.
And it's fairly expensive. It's $100 a month, and the setup fee is $200. So.
Okay. So then, just to summarize quickly, the best way to avoid losing on exchange rates selling from Canada in the USA is what?
Is opening like a bank cross-border account.
Okay.
That's the best way, because you won't lose it. You won't lose in the conversion because they don't convert it, because the bank is actually in the US. So if Amazon owes you 20 grand, they'll pay you 20 grand. There's no conversion.
And that's versus living in Canada with a Canadian bank account selling on Amazon USA. They convert when they process it into your Seller Central account.
Yeah, exactly. So you can do that too, but Amazon takes about 3.5% conversion rate.
Right.
And then usually you're going to have to pay your manufacturer in US dollars. So you're going to have to convert that Canadian dollar back to US dollar.
Okay.
So you actually convert twice and lose money twice in the process, right?
Okay. Yeah, so it's a simple calculation, guys, right? The 3.5%, if that is more or less than the $100 per month charge plus the setup fee, right? And then also considering that you have to pay your manufacturers in USD. So we're going to hop quickly into the actual group questions. I see some coming up now. Have you ever used Payoneer?
No, I have never.
No. And then why? So you're selling in the US and Canadian market, or just the US?
Yeah, US and Canada. Yes.
So can you talk quickly? People are wondering kind of, either or, if you're setting up for the first time, what your kind of thoughts are selling in both markets, and if you do have a recommendation as to picking just one.
I definitely recommend you only go with US to start off, because I've been selling on .ca for 6-7 months now, and my sales in Canada are about 3 to 4% of what I do on .com. So, obviously the population is 10 times more in the US. So I was estimating my sales would be about 10% of what I make in the US, but it's actually closer to 3-4%. And then on top of that, in Canada, import duties on average are twice as much as in the US, in my experience anyways. So you have higher import duties, higher shipping rates from Asia to Canada than from Asia to US. And FBA fees in Canada are ridiculous as well. So overall, I charge like 30 to 40% more for the same product in Canada than in the US. And my profit margins are much less than what I do in the US. Plus, I have less volume. So to me, it really doesn't make any sense to start selling it in Canada. I definitely recommend you start selling on .com.
Okay, cool. All right, so people are asking some more questions about bank accounts. Let's just clarify really here. The cross-border bank account was called what again?
Well, you can either open a personal cross-border account or a business one. Now, business it's only offered by RBC. That's it. So if you have a corporation and you want to get paid in US dollars, you're going to have to go with RBC business cross-border account. And then if you're selling as a sole proprietor, you can open a personal cross-border account. And that's either with RBC, TD, or BMO.
Okay. And people are curious about trademarks and patents. Do you have much experience with that in the U.S. and Canada, and kind of what the differences are? Do they enforce trademarks in Canada from the USA and vice versa?
No, it's actually two different countries, right? So I have trademarked my brand in both U.S. and Canada, and the process was very similar. It's just two different entities. So for U.S., I went on USPTO and did the filing. And I can't remember how much it cost, but it wasn't too much. And
it's around $450.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's around $450.
Yeah, and then in Canada, it's the same, but it's not USPTO. It's called like intellectual property industry or whatever, something like that.
Okay.
And yeah, since it's two different markets, like your trademark that's registered in the US is not a trademark in Canada. So theoretically, you should register for both in Canada and US. And for me, it was fairly easy. I did it myself. Like I think you use Trademarkia or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, you can use those services as well.
Okay.
Same for patents. I don't have any patents myself, but I just started another company with a friend of mine, and we actually got a licensing agreement on a patent from an inventor here in Alberta, and he has a patent in the U.S. and in Canada. So it's the same principle as with trademarks. If you have a patent in the U.S., it's good for U.S. only. It's not good in Canada, and then vice versa. Right?
Okay, cool. And then so somebody is asking about Amazon Seller Central, right? So do you need two separate accounts for Canada and the U.S., or can you have one login and have a dual membership?
Yeah, it's actually a North American account. So on your I started on .com, right? But I know if you start on .ca, I think it's actually cheaper. The monthly subscription is cheaper in Canada for some reason. So, but they're all on the same North American account. So you just log in with your username and password, and on that Seller Central, you can choose either Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, or Amazon.mx. So it's all in the same.
Okay, cool. So this is a very specific question, and I don't know anything about Canadian taxes, but somebody said, is the W8BENE sufficient to take care of the tax situation so you can declare all of your income in Canada and only pay Canadian taxes if you do sell in the USA?
Yeah, that's kind of a gray line because it depends which accountant you talk to. I've talked to accountants who have said yes, it's good enough. You only declare that money in Canada, and because Canada and US have a double taxation treaty, so what they say is basically if we declare all that money in Canada, then we don't have to declare any in the US or vice versa. And so since we're in Canada, it's easier for us to declare it in Canada. So you should definitely talk to your accountant, see what he says, because I've had different answers from different accountants here in Canada. So,
okay.
But generally speaking, it should be fine, yes.
Okay, cool. This one is about actual kind of like supplier relations. Have you ever successfully been able to pay in Canadian dollars? And if so, do you have any tips for doing so?
No. I've asked my supplier a few times, and obviously, right now our Canadian dollar is getting better. It's at 1.2 compared to the US dollar, but it used to be 1.3 not too long ago. And obviously for manufacturers, it was like, well, you're basically asking me for a 30% discount, and they couldn't do that, right? So no, I've never been able to negotiate it to Canadian dollars, so I don't have any tips on that. But usually in Asia, you're going to have to pay in US dollars. So that's why it's better if you get paid in US dollars, then keep that money in a US dollar account, and then you can do wire transfers directly to Asia and pay directly with that money, right?
Okay, cool. So this one's kind of a comparison of the metrics you're looking for as far as a product niche to enter. So they're kind of comparing what is good volume being sold each month, right? For example, if the top 10 sellers are doing 3,000 per month combined in the US, what are you kind of looking for in the Canada side? You know, comparing 300 million in the US versus 35 in Canada.
Yeah, well, that's basically what I was saying earlier, right? I was expecting 10% of the numbers of Amazon.com because we're 10% of the population. But I'd say generally you'd have to look at it's probably closer to 5% of what it actually is. So if the top 10 sellers are doing 3,000, then that would be 150 units a month for Canada,
right?
Roughly. So, it's not bad, but it's not the best.
So this is another one for taxes. Do you file your own business tax return? So I think I know the answer to this, but or do you pay an accountant to do it? And what would you consider a reasonable price for filing a corporate tax return?
No, actually, so I have my accountant. I bring in my all my bookkeeping paperwork every quarter, and they do the sales tax report for me. So usually they charge me $50 an hour for bookkeeping, and that includes reporting the sales taxes. And it's usually 2 hours per month, so about $100 a month for me, anyways.
Okay.
I don't know if it's competitive or not. I've just never looked elsewhere. So
Okay, cool. And then so somebody's asking kind of about when you first started, were you kind of immediately profitable after your first product, or did it take you several products to become profitable? How long were you selling on Amazon before you could kind of commit to it full time?
yeah, no, my first product was profitable. So I started with one, and I reinvested profits from. So basically, I kept my day job for that would be about 10 months roughly, okay? And I would reinvest like 100% of profits from these 10 months into more inventory and more products. And then after 10 months, I quit my job and was making more part-time with my FBA business than I was doing full-time at my job. So I just quit my job. So it took me about 10 months, and yes, I was profitable from day one.
Okay, cool. This one's about outsourcing. Do you outsource any parts of your business? If so, what was the first thing you outsourced, and like, what would you recommend people who are kind of starting out to think about as their first portion of outsource?
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I do outsource actually quite a bit of my operations. Right now, I have 4 full-time virtual assistants working for me. First parts that I wanted to kind of get rid of and outsource were customer service and social medias. So anything that has to do with customer service or social media posts and all of that, my VAs take care of it. And then I kind of have a right-hand guy who he pretty much manages most of the operations. Other than, on what I do is I make sure we don't run out of inventory, and I make sure I look at cash flow and finances and reorder products, and then look for new products and stuff like that. But the rest is pretty much all my VAs.
So do you guys have a partnership, like an equitable partnership set up, or how do you allocate percentages of profits and losses?
Well, I'm the only owner of that company. The other, oh, you mean with my VAs?
No, because you were saying that like you have your right hand man. Is that a VA as well, or is that a partner?
Yeah, that's a VA. Yeah, that's a VA. So he's an employee, right?
Okay. Okay, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, but I pay them, a fair amount every month, and at the end of the year, I'll give them a bonus if they've been really good. But yeah, I think they're pretty happy with what they get.
So are you sourcing VAs from like a Philippines type country? Or are you using local?
Yeah, I found them on onlinejobs.ph.
Okay, cool. All right, so we have some people wondering what accounting software do you use as far as keeping track of things. You said you filed quarterly, so kind of could you talk about that process?
Well, again, so since my accountant does all the bookkeeping, he uses his own software and he uses QuickBooks. Now, on my end, to track how profitable we are and everything, I use Cash Cow Pro.
Okay.
I know it doesn't include like softwares and stuff, but it gives you a pretty good idea of where you're at.
Okay, cool. So everything that you supply to your accountant, you export from Cash Cow Pro?
No, not even. Cash Cow Pro is just for me to have an idea of like on day-to-day operations how profitable we are. Whereas every quarter I literally take my bank statements and then go through everything and take all the receipts I have and bring all of that to my accountant. So it's really separate from Cash Cow Pro. Cash Cow Pro is just to kind of know where I'm going. Whereas when I bring in all my paperwork, then he compiles everything, and then I guess I could compare Cash Cow Pro what it says compared to the real paperwork.
Right.
and it's pretty close, but I have other expenses that are not in Cash Cow Pro, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
you know, office supplies and meals and stuff like that. So,
Okay, cool. After product research, what, in your opinion, is the most important thing selling a product successfully?
hmm. Well, reviews and sales velocity are really important, especially in the beginning. So, yeah, I'd say that's probably the most important. But there's ways to get it off the ground before you actually have your products, right? If you build an audience on social medias and stuff like that, then it can help you launch your product. I think.
Right. Okay, cool. What would you say is the biggest challenge for a Canadian who is just starting out and wants to sell on the U.S. market?
Mm, biggest challenge. There's not that many. Like it's pretty simple. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean the U.S.
maybe dealing with sales taxes, like because I know that scares a lot of people off,
Right.
and it did for me in the beginning, but like you just have to weigh in the risk and the rewards of it, and like if you're just starting out. There's no way the government or the states are going to go after you for 1,000 here, 2,000 there, right? So I'd say if that scares you off, then just push forward and keep learning, and then eventually, once you get big enough, then you might want to consider collecting sales taxes. But
Right. Okay.
in the beginning, don't worry about like all the distractions.
Cool. So did you self-incorporate or did you use a lawyer/service to do it for you?
Um, so that company I have is I started it a few years ago, and it was open through with the help of a lawyer. But here in Alberta, you can actually go to the registries and open a corporation, which is what I did for the new corporation I just started with a partner. It's much cheaper than going to a lawyer. So I know some provinces they don't do that. So I know because I'm from Quebec originally, and I know in Quebec you can't just go to the registries to open a corporation. It has to be a lawyer. So depending on the province you live in, you can go to a lawyer or registry's office.
Okay, cool. How would you describe a typical day of doing business, i.e., wake up at 8 a.m., check emails, check selling, product research, contact suppliers, etc.? If you could walk us through the day in the life of a Canadian seller, that would be great.
Yeah. Well, it's been different though, because I'd say from 0 to like 60K a month, it was pretty easy. Like it wasn't big days. I'd probably work 4 or 5 hours a week. So just checking inventory, make sure I had enough inventory, reorder if I needed to, do a wire transfer, check my PPC, and that's pretty much it. Now over that, like there's more and more customer service, and then social medias, and inventory of 25, 30 products is different than 1 or 2 products. So it's a lot more time, which is why I got VAs. But I'd say now, right now, honestly, I'm in the systemization of my business. So I'm doing SOPs, and that takes quite a bit of time. So right now, what my days look like are I'll wake up at like 8, and then have breakfast with my family, have coffee, and then come to the office at around 9:30, and then I check my emails, respond to all of them, check for emails from my supplier, and then check emails from my VAs, and then I usually check Cash Cow Pro, see how much money we made yesterday, how much the sales were, and then I just go on with my to-do list in Asana. I use Asana, which works really well. And and right now that's pretty much all I do. SOPs.
Cool. And for the people who don't know what SOPs are, could you please describe that? And then could you also talk about a bit what like the main utilizations of your VAs are?
Yeah. So SOPs it's short for standard operating procedures. So the difference between a small business and a big business is systems. Okay, so if you want, if you have to show up to make money, then it's a small business, because if you go away, you're not making money because you're doing everything. Now, the systemization of the business is for you to actually be able to work only 1 or 2 hours a week and still make money while you sleep, right? And so SOPs are descriptions and steps of every task you have to do in your business, from ordering paper to creating a sponsored ad campaign, or ordering products, and every little task you can possibly imagine. There's an SOP for that. And once you have that set up, then if you hire a new VA.
Oh no. We may have just lost Charles.
Yep.
Oh, your screen just went black.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I can hear. I can see your image now.
Because I can. Yeah, my light's still on. Let me try to.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, that's weird.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's basically what SOPs are. Now, usually a business will have anywhere between 200 to 400 or 500 SOPs, and I'm just getting started. So
right. So it's basically just the standardization of processes, just to kind of remove yourself even further and increase automation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and what my VAs do, like I said earlier, I have one that's specific to customer service, so my Amazon customers and my customers from my own website, and then the other one is mainly for social medias and everything that's has to do with graphic design, and then my other guy, he basically, again, he does pretty much everything else, so he takes care of sponsored ads, looks for hijackers, like everything you can think of.
Right. Okay, cool. And so we have a question about selling off of Amazon. Do you have a presence in the Shopify or any other type of areas, or are you exclusively Amazon?
Yeah, I do have my own website that's on Shopify, and we're slowly growing it. And investing in SEO. I haven't had any great results with Facebook ads yet, but we're slowly working in growing my website as well, because right now we do about maybe 10% of what my Amazon sales are.
Okay.
On Shopify, so
right.
It's not bad, but it could be better. And obviously, you want to diversify, because Amazon controls everything, and I mean, in the long run, you want to have some kind of control over your business. So
right.
If at least 50% of my revenues are out of Amazon, I think it's safer.
Right. Agreed. So do you always get samples? If so, how many do you ask for? And who do you make sure receives a sample besides yourself, if anyone?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, the way I've been building my business is I've been growing my brand, right? So I'm in only one niche, and I don't get into any other niche. And I've been dealing with the same supplier for 2 years, and they have a lot of products that are not on Amazon, and so I only deal with them. I've asked other manufacturers for different kinds of products, but so far I haven't found as good quality as the one that I have right now. So it's a little bit different, because I've been dealing with them for 2 years, so I know, there's trust, and I know what the quality is. I still do get samples, and I usually get one myself here in Canada, and my VA in the Philippines gets one as well.
Okay.
So there's always 2 samples. And yeah, I always ask for a sample.
Okay.
Just
and then
to look at it myself.
So how do you actually handle product photography then?
I'm doing this right now. So I found a photography studio here in Edmonton, and I dealt with them for the last few products. They charge about $25 per image, and this time around I wanted to maybe try in the Philippines, because I figured it'd be cheaper, but it's a little bit cheaper, not that much, and it was too hard to, we had to always email the guy, or my VA would have to call him and make sure he was on time and everything. So I ended up actually going back to my photography studio here in Edmonton. Okay. So I just take the samples, I bring them to the photography studio, tell them exactly what I want for images, and usually within 1 or 2 weeks I have the images. So that's cool. What I do now. But the first two products, I did it myself with my iPhone and Photoshop. So.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. So do you use an inspection company to verify the quality, or since you've kind of had the same manufacturer for so long, you don't do it anymore? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, if it's the first time you're dealing with a manufacturer, especially in China, I would definitely hire an inspection company. But for myself, since it's been 2 years and I know the quality, I never do it, and I've never had issues. So. Okay,
cool. And have you ever dabbled in retail and online arbitrage, or were you strictly private label from the start?
Yeah, it's strictly private label. I was looking into maybe wholesaling, for big retailers and stuff. But I'm not ready yet to jump into that. But maybe eventually I'll get into it. But I've never done RA or online arbitrage or all that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool. 3 more questions for you. Are there any niches that are hot in Canada, think hockey, and not in the U.S. that we could target specifically for the Canadian market?
That's a good question. Well, yeah, other than hockey, hockey would be good, actually. Hockey and everything that has to do with snow, so snowmobiles, quads, stuff like that.
Right.
But other than that, man, I don't know, because I don't search for products anymore. When you're always in that phase searching for new products, it's easier to know kind of the niches. But I've just stayed in that same niche I've been since the beginning, and I don't look for other niches. So I don't really know. Even in the U.S., like obviously fidget spinners and stuff like that would have been good a few months ago.
Yeah.
But for Canada, yeah, I can't recommend anything else. I have no idea.
Okay, cool. Lots of accountants aren't specialized in e-commerce business in general and internet businesses, especially for those that sell in the U.S. Any tips or resources you can share for Canadian sellers?
Yeah, so that was a little bit complicated at first because I had to deal with an accountant with no online experience at all. I did find one in Canada, so it's a company called Live. So it's Live CA LLP. They're based out of Toronto and Halifax, and they specialize, they're younger guys, and they specialize for online businesses. Now, the only reason I didn't go with them was because they were way too expensive, way more than what I was paying with my current accountant. So you can ask them, maybe they do some consultation, but these are the ones I know that actually specialize for online businesses.
Okay, cool. And last question. Before we go back to any of the live questions in the Facebook group, these are still kind of the ones from the list. Would you mind sharing a freight forwarder that you've been successful with who offers a great price that might be advantageous for CAD?
Yeah. I just started using freight forwarders because I'm going to start sea shipping. Before that, I was always doing air cargo or air express. So I never used freight forwarders before. My supplier would literally ship with their own DHL account. Now the one I'm dealing with, and I know other big sellers in Canada are using as a freight forwarder, they're Western Overseas, and they're based in California.
Okay.
And so far they've been good with me, so I'd recommend them.
When you aren't using a freight forwarder, could you walk us through your involvement using your supplier's DHL account, from start to finish? How are you actually even involved in that at all?
I'm not really involved into it. Air Express is really easy, right? There's nothing really. They don't ask for an ultimate consignee or an importer of record or anything. So that's pretty straightforward. When you do Air Express, all you have to make sure is that you ask for DDP terms, so that if there's any duties to be paid, it's going to be charged to the shipper's account, which is your manufacturer, and then they can invoice you later for that. Now, when I use air cargo, it's a bit different. They ask you for an ultimate consignee, an EIN, and then an importer of record. So in my case, what I did is for the ultimate consignee, Amazon can act as the ultimate consignee, but you have to ask them. So I gave the DHL rep, I gave him the email address from Amazon, which is seller-imports@amazon.com. And then DHL customs brokers contact Amazon to get their EIN and ask Amazon to act as the ultimate consignee. And in my case, they said yes. I don't know if they ever say no, but they said yes. So Amazon acted as the ultimate consignee. They gave their EIN, and then for the importer of record, it can be you or your business or your manufacturer's company. And in my case, it was my manufacturer who acted as the importer of record.
Okay.
And then that's it. They just ship to the US and gets to Amazon.
Cool. All right, so you have about 212 people watching you on Facebook and a ton more on YouTube. There's about 1 million YouTube questions, so I'm gonna restrict this to Facebook just so we don't, take up the next 18 hours of your life. Just a couple more questions then from Facebook, and then we'll let you go. Appreciate your time.
Sounds good.
How long did it take you to find your first product, and when did you decide to go for your second?
That's a really good question. Okay, so at the time, 2 years ago, I didn't know Jungle Scout existed. So the way I always thought was to go search manually through Amazon bestsellers. And that's what I did. And it took me, can't remember exactly, but it was anywhere between 30 and 40 hours of research before I found the good product to sell.
Okay.
So it took me, let's say 30 hours to find my first product. And then to launch my second product, it actually took, I think I launched in December. So about 5 or 6 months, about 5 months.
Okay. And that takes into account like the launch phase and all the kind of, portions that go along with selling your first product, right? It wasn't like, you found your product on January 1st and then you found your next one on May 1st. It was kind of like you had to ship it into Amazon and all that, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly.
So you're actively selling.
And two, it was just, like I said, I kept my job and I just reinvested all profits. And, profits from one product can be great, but it takes a while to have enough money to order a second product that my second product costed me it's a little over $7 US a piece, right? Plus shipping. So it took me a while to get that money to launch a second product.
Right. Okay. So knowing what you know now, would you have gone back in time and stayed at your job for 10 months, or would you have done anything differently?
No, I think I would have done the same. Maybe I should have stayed at my job a little bit longer. It would have, helped grow my business even a little faster. But I was just so sick of it that I was like, you know what? Let's just quit the job. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I'd say 10 months. Like probably a year would be best. Like if you can reinvest your profits for a year, that would definitely be better.
Okay. So do you sell in the EU market at all, or are you strictly okay?
No, I've got friends here who sell on Amazon.uk and Spain and France, and UK seems to be doing really well, but I don't myself know.
Okay. And do you use commercial liability insurance? Somebody was saying that they heard it was better to find someone who's in the same country as you.
Yeah, so commercial insurance are kind of tricky because, especially for us, because Amazon requires you to have at least $1 million in US dollars, so $1 million US dollars in liability. And for us in Canada, if we get one for 1 million Canadian, it's not enough for Amazon, so you should get a 2 million Canadian one in Canada. And you actually need a manufacturer's insurance, not just like a commercial insurance, because when you do private label, you're considered the manufacturer. So you have to find insurance brokers who know their stuff, right?
Right.
And most of them, they don't know about private labeling and having a manufacturer's insurance. So the company I found is called, what's it called again? I can't remember. They're based out of Calgary.
Okay.
So
yeah, we can follow up with you. There's no worries about that.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a few more. Do you still have like 5 more minutes, or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's fine.
So when you import products into the U.S., Bing. Okay, sorry, we actually already answered this one, Bing. Does cross-border account require a U.S. address to set up?
No.
No.
No. Your Canadian address is fine. No need for a U.S. address.
Okay, cool. So that looks like pretty much all. We already answered. You don't do wholesale. TD also offers cross-border business accounts. Somebody is saying. We already answered the patent question. So if anybody else has any final questions for Charles, we'll ask them now, or if not, we can always follow up. I guess the last kind of question is, there's some Canadian students of mine who are wondering if it's okay to reach out to you if they have any questions, or if you have like an email address or the address to your YouTube channel, we could obviously share as well.
Yeah. It would probably be best via YouTube.
Okay.
There's a private messaging system in YouTube that would probably be the best way to reach me.
Okay, cool.
Otherwise, my inbox is filled. So,
right.
Yeah, I can give you the link for my YouTube channel.
Nice. Yeah, we will share the YouTube channel, guys, in the description, or if anybody wants, his YouTube, they can just message me. But I'll share it in the student groups. So thank you so much for coming on, man. Obviously, it's so funny. Like, you joined the mastermind probably like a year ago, and now we finally get to see your face and get to grill you a little bit about Canadian selling.
Yeah, well,
all right,
awesome.
man.
Well, thanks for having me, and hopefully it helped a few of you guys. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it did, and maybe we can get you on some other day. So enjoy the rest of your day, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, you too.
All right, man. Take care.